see how they could be a part of the growth of the city. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Presentations. First one is Florida Festivals and Events Association Sensational Awards.
Chair Llewellyn, I want to introduce Dawn Reed, Chair of the Florida Festival and Events Association, and she has a special presentation tonight.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chair, Vice Chair, board members. Excited to be here again. It feels like I just did this yesterday, but it was a year ago. So very, very excited. Not only did I get to attend the Seafood Festival, the Arts and Seafood Festival, again this year, and as you, I think, all know by now, I am a Dania Beach resident, so very excited. We had 510 submissions this year for awards. We have 725 members of FFEA, so it's very much a growing organization. We're excited about that. And the City of Dania Beach won 7 awards. Yeah, and it was the 25th anniversary of the Florida Festival and Events Association, so a particular exciting year for us. So there were a few first place. Commemorative poster won first place. First place in program, event guide, and brochure. First place in promotional mailer. Second place tickets and invitations. Second place website. Third place in radio, and third place in T-shirt. So your staff, your team has done an amazing job growing this event, and obviously the judges like what they see in by way of your collateral pieces. So we do have special awards. Are you gonna?
So I'm going to invite the board to come down and receive these awards.
Yes, please. And we actually had Kathleen at the conference this year. She was able to attend and get some of the sessions and the learning opportunities that we have to offer.
It's all right, I'll go. No, it's all right, I'll go. Christ.
Does it say? Oh, yeah. We'll kind of pass them out a little bit so everybody can. I know, they're so fun. It's only for 1 week.
She said takes good pictures.
It's not broken.
Okay.
Don't scratch the new paint.
Chair Llewellyn?
Yes.
If I could just shout out Gina Santa Maria. She was the artist for the poster, and thank Creative Arts Council Advisory Board because they did the call to artists and ranked the submissions and ranked Gina first. Thank you.
Next item is the proposed budget fiscal year 2020. Executive Director Williams.
Where's his? Bill, here's yours. Wait a minute, maybe it's Anna's, look. Whose is this? We all got him, honey. We got his. It's, Tamara got hers. I got mine. Oh. I got it. But you have one. crazy.
Again, good afternoon, CRA Board. Raquel Williams, Executive Director. Before we get started on the proposed budget presentation, I just want to thank you for setting a lot of the priorities that you will see in the proposed budget and for being very vocal about the direction and the strategy that you'd like to take with the CRA for the upcoming fiscal year. I also want to send a big thank you to our CRA Treasurer, Ms. Nikki Satterfield, and also Adam Siegel in our Finance Department at the City of Dania Beach that provide us with excellent service and guide us as we put our budget together. I also want to thank Kathleen Weeks, CRA Manager, for doing a lot of work with helping to put this budget together. Okay, so just wanting to review the mission of the CRA. The mission of the Dania Beach Community Redevelopment Agency is to create and implement economically sound redevelopment and revitalization activities in the city of Dania Beach, improve the unique quality of life while simultaneously facilitating investment, commercial development, innovation, and growth for our diverse population. I think it's important that we remember our mission as we discuss our budget. This budget is being used as a planning tool. The things that we budget for today help as a guidebook or a map, a roadmap for us as we enter the fiscal year and we determine how we're going to go about doing the work of the CRA. So in our adopted CRA plan from 2015, there are 5 goals, and those are listed here, and you should be very familiar with them. And most of these strategies and objectives in the budget proposal really reflect the CRA plan and what was adopted in 2015 and what we've been working on thus far. So some accomplishments, I'm sorry, this should say 2018, 2019. Some accomplishments for last fiscal year included 3 commercial property improvement grants that we marketed, as well as continuing to facilitate the rebranding initiative that got started in the previous fiscal year, but we have continued it, and you should have seen a lot of things happen in the city since that time in terms of new signage, new advertising, public relations activities. We also hosted our annual business luncheon, which most of you attended, and we had our monthly Dania After Dark throughout the course of the year, as well as supporting the Art in the Hall event with the Creative Arts Council Advisory Board. This year, we also executed the Arts and Seafood Celebration in its 7th installment, and we have reduced the net operating cost from $120,000 to $72,000 over the course of 2 years. And I show 2 years because, as you all know, in the 6th installment, we had some inclement weather. So I thought it was important to show what we did from the previous year until our most recent installment. We were awarded a grant from the Frederick A. DeLuca Foundation for $59,500 for our Patch Mobile Market, and that supplements the grant award that we received last year from the USDA. We also were awarded the Broward Redevelopment Program grant in the amount of $1 million to support the Tryon project. And many of you have asked questions about the Tryon project and what the status is, and just know that the developer is revising construction documents and will be resubmitting for permitting in the fall. We also undertook a pilot program, the At Home Dania Beach program, in several facets, one of them being our residential beautification grant program. And to date, we've done 20 homes for eligible household with exterior painting and landscaping. And that work continues. We actually have 4 upcoming projects in the next week. So we're moving through that project seamlessly. We also started work on 6 infill lots to do single-family affordable housing in our redevelopment area. Site work has begun. If you've driven by lately, you've probably seen something different than when you drove by a couple weeks before. So if you recall, back in June, the developer asked for an extension to the agreement for the schedule, and that was executed in July. So they do have several months to complete the project, but we know that they're going to come in delivering that project ahead of schedule. We also have our city center redevelopment project, and many of you are very familiar with that and have been keeping up with that. We have received 3 viable proposals from 3 developers, 1 local, 1 national, 1 international, and we project that this project, with your approval, will move forward and be something positive for the city. Taking a look at our organizational chart, for the upcoming fiscal year, we are not proposing any new positions. We currently have 6 full-time equivalent staff members, so we really have 4 full-time members and 4 part-time members, which equals 6 full-time equivalent staff members. We are asking for a program modification for our administrative specialist to go from part-time at 20 hours to part-time 28 hours. The demands of the projects and initiatives that we've taken on really require us to have additional administrative support. Rather than going to full-time, we're just seeking an additional 8 hours per week. Taking a look at our cost allocation. Our cost allocation is essentially what we are billed for the services that the city of Dania Beach provides to us. So if you look at the chart, we have city commission, human resources, legal counsel, city clerk, finance, IT, public services, and general government. So this totals $247,098. And this is essentially a pass-through from the city to the CRA and passed back to the city. So it covers all of our administrative costs that come from the city of Dania Beach. What's included? I want to talk about the notable budget items that are included. And I want to start with those things that we are continuing. So continuation of existing programs. We have our commercial property improvement grants, residential property improvement grants, down payment assistance, and I want to highlight that we will be receiving $82,000 from Stellar Communities to offset our down payment assistance. So although it shows $120,000 there, we're really only spending $38,000 on down payment assistance for this year. Architectural services for our housing program, home buyer education courses, arts and seafood celebration. Again, we want to maintain our sponsorship of the Vintage Motorcycle Show, host our annual business luncheon, continue with Dania After Dark, and support Art in the Hall. The Creative Arts Council has been a wonderful partner and has really elevated the Art in the Hall experience, and so we want to stay with them and provide them support. We also have our Broward County debt service if it's required for any repayment of the parking garage debt that is owed. So we don't know that we will use that $250,000, but we're working with the county right now to come to a determination on what will be owed, if any. And our administrative cost allocation, which we just went through. Now, on this slide, we're talking about the new CRA requests. So these are things that staff is requesting for the upcoming fiscal year. It's new, it's not a continuation. So earlier this year, we had a discussion item on Winterfest, which the board agreed to move forward with, but that was a staff request. We saw it as a rebranding initiative item that would be very beneficial to the city and give us a lot of exposure. We also would like to plan through our economic development manager a small business training boot camp to get more of our small businesses engaged and give them a lot of the skills that are necessary in this market. We would also like to produce a guide to doing business that will help businesses navigate through the city and actually become more aware of the resources that are available to them, both at the city, county, and the state level. And we're also asking for the program modification that was indicated before in the organizational chart. To take our part-time employee from 20 hours to 28 hours, the fiscal impact of that would be $7,375. This slide also shows some of the new initiatives that are being proposed in this budget. The initiatives on this slide demonstrate the desire of the board to take on new activities and initiatives and programs. So these are some of the things that the CRA board has discussed during past meetings, and we included it in the budget so that you all can make a determination on how you want to move forward. Expanded holiday lighting, $46,000. CRA board travel and training, that's estimated at $22,300, although $30,000 was approved. When I took a look at the different trips and polled on who would be interested in the different trainings and certification programs, our estimate came in at about $22,300 with a little cushion included in case someone might want to go to a training that we have not identified as of yet. Pride events and sponsorships, bike sharing at 2 locations, wrestling entertainment at the Arts and Seafood Celebration, 115th birthday at Dania After Dark, Super Bowl marketing and event at Dania After Dark, garage mural project, decorative crosswalk project, and Fort Lauderdale International Film Festival in Dania Beach at the casino. So the total for these new initiatives is roughly about $220,000. One of the items highlighted in the budget book is a personnel cost analysis. And I thought it was important to highlight this because as personnel costs increase, that is something that needs to be adjusted for in our general fund allocation. And here's why. So over the course of the last few years, from 2014 to 2020, personnel costs have gone up almost $100,000. However, when we look at our general fund allocation over roughly the same time period, our allocation has remained the same for the last 6 years at $880,000. So what that means is, if our general fund allocation remains the same, but our personnel costs continue to rise, we have less and less funding to carry out redevelopment initiatives. So that's something that we would need to take a look at, because we need to plan that for future years we account for these types of increases, and we don't necessarily take away from the redevelopment initiative funding that is so critical for the work that we do. You may have noticed in your budget book that something was included that wasn't there in the previous year. And it is an in-depth demonstration of what tax increment financing is or could be for the Dania Beach CRA. Now, there's a lot of commentary when it comes to our CRA, because we're a little different. Not different than all, but different from most. And that's because we don't have tax increment financing. But what is tax increment financing, and where does it come from? So I just want to take a moment to read this aloud because I think it's very important. Tax increment financing is a unique tool available to cities and counties for redevelopment activities. It is used to leverage public funds to promote private sector activity in the targeted area. The dollar value of all real property in the CRA area is determined as of a fixed date, or the base year, and that creates a frozen value. The base year of the original CRA is 2004, and it's 2009 for the expanded CRA area. Taxing authorities who contribute to the tax increment continue to receive property tax revenue based on the frozen value. These frozen value revenues go to their general funds and are available for general government purposes. However, Any tax revenues and increases in real property value, referred to as increment, are deposited into the CRA's trust fund and dedicated to the redevelopment area. So just to take a look at this for a moment. In 2004, when the CRA was originally created, that created your base year. And the values for the base year was about 172 million. And that accounts for about 525 acres. In 2009, the CRA was expanded and added 824 acres. So now we have a total of about 1,300 acres. The value for the 2009 expanded boundary was about 383 million. In 2020, we saw tremendous growth in the original area as well as the expanded area. Now, many of you have noted that the expanded area includes the Dania Point development. So a lot of the growth that's happening in the city is happening in the redevelopment area. Okay, so what does that really amount to? So the 2020 city tax increment financing, meaning not the county, just the city, because most CRAs receive tax increment from the city, the county, and any other taxing district. It could be a hospital district or a special taxing district that would provide TIF revenue as well. For the original boundary, it's about 1.6 million. For the expanded boundary, it's about 1 million, for a total city TIF of 2.63 million. So when we talk about, we don't have TIF, that's not necessarily, the downside. We don't have any contribution from the county, but we do have a contribution from the city of Dania Beach. And if there were a TIF from the city of Dania Beach for 2020, it would amount to $2.6 million. Now, when we look at the county, if we had a county TIF on top of a city TIF, using the TIF model, that would be $2.4 million for a combined TIF from city and county of $5 million. And this is all based on growth in the redevelopment area. So let's talk about the budget request that is proposed. The current general fund allocation is about $1.13 million, and that is what has been proposed from the city of Dania Beach as a contribution to the CRA. The requested general fund is $1.57 million. The difference there is about $440,000, which shows on the budget as a deficit, as we are lacking $440,000 to meet the request or the budget request for this fiscal year. However, when you look at the city TIF calculation for 2020, it's $2.63 million. The CRA is requesting a contribution from the city of Dania Beach that is over $1 million less than what the TIF calculation would be for the city. So the growth in the CRA would show a TIF, or tax incremental revenue, of $2.63 million, but the budget request is $1.57 million. So in summary, we are looking at revenues and expenditures on this last slide, and we do show that we would have an unmet need for this fiscal year. And I would like to invite the board to not only, meet with me or call me or email me or, identify what your priorities are based on the items that are included, the items that have been discussed, and any questions that you may have, I'll take them at this time.
Board Member Brenda Marty.
No, she answered my question. Thank you.
Board Member Harris.
You said that $2.63 million, if it were a TIF, so that dollar amount is hypothetical. Is that right?
That dollar amount is based on the actual taxable values in the CRA district, both the original area and the expanded area. So the general fund contribution that we're currently receiving does not equate to what the TIF calculation is. We're requesting 1.5, but the TIF would be 2.6.
So it's a hypothetical number. It would be if it were real, but it's not a real number.
It is a real number based on real taxable values in the city. So every year, the Broward County Property Appraiser sends us the values that are reflected for the properties in the CRA district, both the original and the expanded. Based on those numbers, if you were to calculate the TIF, it would be 2.63 million. Now, in the past, that has not been the method that has been used to determine the general fund allocation. And I'm guessing some of that probably occurred because maybe when the recession was going on and the values weren't very high, or, you know, there was an issue with sustainability citywide, there was potentially a TIF that was very low. But what we're seeing right now is tremendous growth in the CRA district. So it's not that the CRA is necessarily asking for city TIF. We're asking for enough to cover the projects, programs, initiatives that have been existing and that have been requested by the CRA board to go forward. So it's not a hypothetical number, it's just not a number that we have decided to utilize.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next is the consent agenda. Do we have any polls? I have one. I'd like to pull number 4.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, except with the exception of 5.4.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 5.4. Oh, resolution 2019 CRA 16.
This is a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Dania Beach Community Redevelopment Agency, the CRA of the City of Dania Beach, Florida, authorizing the proper CRA officials to execute a 1-year renewal of the existing agreement with Atlantic Studios, Inc. for production services for the 2019-2020 Dania After Dark event in an amount not to exceed $69,600, providing for conflicts, further providing for an effective date.
Executive Director, I wanted to know if, I see this as like an automatic renewal that you'd want to do. Did you look to see if there was anybody else out there that might be available at a cheaper rate? Because usually as a program goes on and it becomes popular and people know more about it, there's a lot more competition. So I'd like to know if you tried to contact anybody, if there was anything else out there, if there was the thought of putting out any sort of a bid or anything like that to get a cheaper amount.
Okay, so we had just bid out this service a year ago, and we put in place a contract that would allow for a renewal. At the time that we bid this out, I think there was only one proposal at that time, although we had spoken to some other firms before the official bid went out. What I found with this event producer is that they've provided quality service, and we've been able to work well with them, and that's why I've recommended them for renewal. Based on the items that the event producer has to provide, including police services, restrooms, stage, band, staff, logistics, electricity, we found that the price was pretty reasonable. Actually, at the ICSC conference over the weekend, there were several CRAs there that either have done an event similar or something with little difference to Dania After Dark. And I asked about their pricing, and they seemed to be in line with what we were receiving from this event producer. So I wasn't concerned about going out to bid so quickly because this contract had just been in place for a year. So no, I had not looked for anyone else at this time.
And my thought is that although it's only been out for a year, this event itself is just, we just passed a one-year anniversary on it. And it has received more notoriety now. We have more marketing about it out there. There's a billboard out on 95, I understand. And that being the case, and Dania Beach itself has changed quite a bit over the last year, and we all know that more and more people are looking to come here simply because of the fact that we are a growing city and that there's a lot more opportunity now. So I'm just wondering if it might be beneficial to go out and look to see if there is anybody else there that might be willing to bid at a lower rate that might be able to do the same sort of thing in order to get in on what's going on in the city.
Again, that would be something, if the board would like to see that happen, I'm recommending that we renew the contract based on the services that have been provided and the level of professionalism that we've seen. This event producer has a lot of marketing experience, and that has helped to garner the support for this event. I do know that some of the other producers that we spoke to prior to this bid going out, they didn't have that marketing skill set. I'm not sure who would be interested at this time. I do know that we recently, and I'm not sure how much I'm able to share because it's under the cone of silence still for the Arts and Seafood Celebration. I don't know what the interest level would be if we went back out to bid, if we would get a large variety of potential vendors who would want to do this. So, I mean, it's up to the will of the board on how you want to proceed, but my recommendation is to move forward, especially given the timeline. We are approaching September, and this is a monthly event, so in order to do a bid at this time, there would be an interruption of the installments for this event, particularly since we have the 115th birthday coming up, and I wouldn't want to disrupt the event. Maybe this is something that we can look at for the following year, since we do have 2 additional one-year renewals that we could move forward with after this one if the board so desired.
I think this was exactly one of the reasons why the resolution was passed on contracts, having contracts when they're coming up, we know about them in advance. So it would have been nice to know about this in advance and compliance with that so that we could make such a decision without having to disrupt anything. I don't know if there's a potential for doing something. I know that we've had some other issues in the past with some of the contracts that you can't do a month-to-month sort of thing, but maybe that's something that we could do and put out a bid at the same time.
Understood. And that contracts policy goes into effect on October 1st of 2019.
All right,
So
but still, it would have been nice to know in advance. Board Member Brandon Marty?
Yes. Raquel, I have a question to ask you. Don't you think, all right, it's $69,600. Why haven't you got or hired within the CRA your own event planner? That's a salary, for gosh sake. And that way you got the person for a $69,000 salary and you got him employed for 365 days a year. You should think about that. I myself think it's a great idea. Why would I want to one time always go out and pay these people when I could just as well put somebody on the payroll for that price? Do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
I understand you
Does
clearly,
this
Board
board
Member Brandon
understand what I'm
Marty.
saying?
I do
I
want
mean-
to. I do want to note that this dollar figure includes a lot more than the staff, than what the staff person provides. There's a lot of elements that go into what this fee is.
I understand that.
So it's 69,000, but once you deduct the stage, the bands, the restrooms, the fire, the police, that number goes down significantly.
I still think you should have an event planner on your staff, and not now, it's too late.
Okay.
It's even too late to send out bids. We're going to end up with the same situation as we're doing for the 115th anniversary. I am not for resending it out. It's too late. These are things that had to be thought about a long time ago. Not necessarily by you, by all of us.
Board Member James?
I just have a motion if the discussion is finished.
Second.
What's the motion?
I make a motion to approve 5.4. She already seconded. You want to second it again?
Are you seconding that? I would just ask that if we pass this, that we start considering putting out a bid for the following year. I'd also like you to look at the contract and just see if there is some way that we might be able to start doing a bidding process early, because as with all of our contracts, which has been brought up by a couple of different members of this board in the past, both here and on the city commission, we need to look at all of the contracts and see whether or not they are efficient and are appropriate. So that includes CRA contracts.
Yes.
Okay?
Next season.
You can call the roll.
Board Member Brandimart,
What are we voting on?
I made a motion to approve 5.4. You seconded.
Yes, I did second it, so my answer would be yes. But when the mayor started talking about what she did, I also agree with her, that
Okay.
next year we do it,
Okay.
the right way. But yes,
Okay.
Board Member Harris,
Yes.
Board Member James.
Yes.
Vice Chair Osmond,
Yes.
Chair Llewellyn,
Yes.
5-0.
Next is proposals and bids. First item is a resolution. Oh. Resolution number 2019 CRA 017.
yes.
A resolution of the Board of Directors of the Dania Beach Community Redevelopment Agency, the CRA of the City of Dania Beach, Florida, authorizing the proper CRA officials to award a bid related to request for proposals RFP number CRA 19-001 to Florida CDI LLC Christmas Designers for the 2019 holiday lighting and decorations, authorizing the proper CRA officials to negotiate agreement, providing for conflicts, further providing for an effective date.
Any questions? Board Member Brandon.
Yeah, we already have it in her budget now, up to $40,000, am I correct?
49,000, I think it
41,
was.
49, whatever?
46.
Yeah, it's already in the budget, so it's part of the budget. But sending it out for bids is good.
Well, I think it was the bids already came in and they already scored them. It's part of the backup. In the backup.
Oh, gosh.
I had a question. Well,
No, go ahead.
Board Member James, go ahead.
I just have a motion if y'all, whenever
Okay.
you finish.
Just a question. Only 2 people replied to the bid?
Yes.
And what is this going to cover at this point? What areas again?
So the 46,000 that's included in the budget would include Dania Beach Boulevard, East Dania Beach Boulevard, City Center with a new Christmas tree, as well as Federal Highway.
Where?
All of Federal Highway?
That's a state.
Between Sheridan and Old Griffin.
Did you say Old Federal Highway?
She said all of Federal Highway, from Sheridan to Old Griffin.
Did they let you do that?
Yes.
I just want to make sure that, again, you're working with Parks and Rec and the city manager about anything else that's being done within the city, because we want to keep things consistent. So I don't know if there have been any bids for that on that end of it, so I would just ask that you continue to do that.
I did reach out to the Parks and Recreation Director and asked if he would want to have the parks included for this bid. We did get responses on that section, so if Parks and Rec would like to utilize this firm based on this RFP, they're open to doing that. And we did get the community centers that the Parks and Recreation Director requested be included. And he also had requested that the tree be included, so that's why that's there.
Okay? Commissioner James?
No.
Let her go first. Vice Mayor?
Oh, because you were going to
She's ready to make a motion, yeah.
I think I may have asked you this when we were sitting down one time, but I can't remember the answer. What's happening with the old tree?
We did include a representative from Parks and Recreation and Public Services on the evaluation committee for this item, and what I gleaned from those representatives were that the current tree and the condition of it was not necessarily the most well-suited for future use. And I know that the board had desired to go in a new direction with the holiday tree, given the circumstances of last year, and so that's why the tree was included.
Right, for sure. It's just that, because since we decided to not move, like, we didn't expand anything out west, correct?
We actually did include that in the proposal to see what that would cost to do all of those thoroughfares, and we do have some pricing on that. So if that's something that the city would like to move forward with, they can also utilize this as a competitive bid process if they would like to go forward and do other areas. I did advise the city manager to take an inventory of the existing lights and decor, and I'm sure that she is in the process of doing that or has done that already. And so there is room to do additional lighting. I've put in the budget for $46,000 for the lights on US 1, City Center, and East Dania Beach Boulevard, as that is the CRA district. And I thought it was a reasonable amount based on the budget, in consideration of the fact that last year we spent about $7,000 total on holiday lighting. So an expansion of that to go to $46,000, I thought was
That's fine. I'm just saying,
Conservative.
if maybe there's an opportunity to use some of the older decorations, instead of getting rid of them, if there's something creative we can do with them. Obviously I don't want them looking like a secondhand drop off, but if we could make it look nice, or if the tree is, I remember to me it's a peculiar tree, but if there's some way to make it work and look nice, I think, if you can light it up a little bit out west, I know that they would appreciate that. All right, that's all I got.
Board Member James.
Make a motion to approve 6.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 7 is discussion and possible action. Number 1, 115th birthday celebration at Dania After Dark proposed budget.
At the last meeting, Board Member Harris asked us to come back with a draft budget proposal for the 115th, and it seemed as if there was consensus for that. So we have provided what we think is a good starting place for the budget, showing $1,000 in revenue off of sales of a commemorative T-shirt that we intend to have designed. And so we're looking at a net operating cost of $9,000 for this event after we take into account the revenue that we're projecting.
It's on a line item on the budget. I don't know that we need to do anything at this point. I'm not sure who went first. Commissioner James?
Oh, well, nothing needs to be voted on?
I don't think so. It's already a line item on the budget. We can discuss it at the budget meeting. Commissioner Harris, do you have anything?
No, I was just going to mention that in the budget, there was nothing in there for food. There's something in there called Danish tastings. Is that like some Danish food, or everybody gets a Danish pastry?
Pretty much,
Because
yeah.
I looked back in 2015 when we had the Founder's Day event, and we had, because basically we fed everybody in the city that came, barbecue chicken, hamburgers, and hot dogs. So you don't have anything like that on there for a special Founder's Day event. And the budget for that event was $43,550, all of which was raised by the profits from the night before with the black tie event. So that's how that went. And we did have, because I pulled the documents from 2015, we called it Under the City Hall Tree. We had portable stages and risers. We had an elementary school choir, folding tables, chairs, speakers, and sound system from Chris Cruz from Y100. We had Jeff Hansen with the local band. Bounce houses, dunk tanks for the city officials, especially the vice mayor.
That was you at the time.
Ring toss, horseshoe throwing contest. I mean, it was like a Founder's Day event. Karate demonstration. In this case, it would probably be a wrestling demonstration. Art exhibit, food stations from some of the restaurants in town that would do a tasting of their products. Quarter deck. We had popcorn from the popcorn zone then. Land Crab Lounge, Historic Dockers, Dairy Bell, Jackson's, and Jimmy's Chocolates did. And we also had classic cars staged in various locations on First and in the post office area for people to see. Did you want to think about any of those other things for the? Yeah, but some of them don't. I mean, you have to look for sponsorships and things like that, but we don't have any, and we don't have the time, so. Yeah,
But we could probably
I'm just
get some
saying, that's what we
sponsorships
did
for
in
it.
2015, and it was a hugely successful event, so, just to compare.
Are we looking for sponsorships?
We are looking for sponsorship, and we typically start up our sponsorship drive for the Arts and Seafood celebration at this time. So we're not only asking for art and seafood right now, we're asking for 115th. We haven't gotten any commitments as of yet, but if you
None?
have any potential sponsors that you would like to recommend, we are
I think if
keen.
you wanted to do the tasting, like a taste of Dania Beach, I will bet you that if you went around to some of the local restaurants, they would be more than happy to throw their hat in the ring to get, for the promotional aspect alone.
Well, one thing I want us to consider as well is that we are modifying an existing program, and so the food trucks that do normally come out for Dania After Dark would not necessarily expect a huge offering of free foods. So we do want to make sure that it's still profitable for the food trucks and, the normal participants for that event. So we wanted to be modest with our offering for free food.
I don't know, that has to be free, but I mean, at least.
Are you,
have some
I'm sorry,
opportunities.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Considering changing the times for the Dania After Dark for this particular anniversary event? I'm asking the question.
No, we had not considered extending the time for the November installation.
Okay.
Is that something that you'd want to do? Keep in mind, the added time would be potential added costs, especially for our police. We're talking about almost doubling our police that will be present for that day. So that's a consideration that, we could plan for that, but we would have to manipulate the budget and make, something might get shifted to accommodate the services that would need to be provided for an extra hour.
Vice Chair?
What time does it end now? Like 10?
Currently, it goes from 5 to 10.
I guess, could you see for us what that would come out to add it
4 to 11?
till 11, and then we could see, I don't know, is that late anymore?
What about do like 4 to 11?
So can you look and see what it would cost for us to
Can't do that.
4 to 11, but would people,
The noise ordinance.
what's that?
Doesn't a noise ordinance stand at
I
10?
can't hear you, Board Member.
She asked
Board
about
Member
she asked
James.
about a noise ordinance, would it violate a noise ordinance? Look into it for us and see what that cost expansion would be, and I guess then we can decide if it would be worth it. Although I think it's probably fine the way it is, but just so we would have that option.
Sure.
Board Member James?
Nothing, I said it already.
All right. Okay, so the next item is resolution number 2019 CRA 018.
A resolution of the Board of Directors of the Community Redevelopment Agency, the CRA of the City of Dania Beach, Florida, authorizing the proper CRA officials to execute an amendment of an employment agreement with Raquel Williams to provide services as Executive Director to the CRA, providing for conflicts, further providing for an effective date.
Board Member James?
Yeah, I was saying anyone was going to speak on it. I don't know if you all had a chance to, the last time we left this off, if anyone had a chance to look at the backup and see all of the information and sit down with the CRA Executive Director to understand the asks and the amount of work and the comparisons of other cities. And I know one thing I heard the last meeting was we don't have a TIF, and how is it compared to other cities that have a TIF? And upon the research and the conversations that I've had, if our city received a TIF, it would be $40,000 more than the current ask, or something along those lines. So I don't know. The discussion I have is the same discussion I had last time, because of the Commissioner Brandon Marty's item, which was with the comp in class, and Evergreen didn't really go out and survey these positions with other executive directors of the cities. From the conversation that I had had with them, or the meeting that I had with our executive director and HR. And so it will only be an $11,000 raise after the same increase that everyone else is going to get. So I think it's very reasonable. I think with the amount of work and expectation, and the amount of projects, and the amount of money that's being generated from our CRA, I think is very reasonable.
Vice Chair?
I sat down with Director Williams, and she went over all the projects with me, and I was really impressed at how much you put together in terms of what was asked of you at the last meeting. I feel the same way about it as I did last time. I don't have much commentary on the TIF versus the non-TIF discussion. I don't know how much I can add to that. But in terms of what I think you've brought to the city in terms of revenue, in terms of your vision and follow-through, in terms of the quality of the work, to me, it's all been, it's exceeded my expectations. So I really appreciate that you put this all together. I hope that everyone sat down with you over the last 2 weeks. I know that even though I always meet with you and you explain everything to me, even the most minute detail, if I need it explained 10 times, you always have. When I sat down with you, you were able to articulate even more details about what you've brought and what you've done over the past few years that I wasn't aware of from before I came on the commission. So I appreciate that, and you absolutely have my full support with this. I hope that the board does the right thing on here.
Board Member Harris.
I kind of think that because you're close to your annual, that we wait on this to be able to examine the information a little bit more, and then get a chance to do the evaluation and look at some of the other performances, and just not do this right now, not tonight.
I would agree with that as well. This, again, is a contracted position. What was provided to us in the backup for this with the, I'm not sure where the $11,000 came from, but it's a 20% increase for what she's looking for. It's going up to $140,000. That's 20%. What was included is essentially what appears to me to be a contract negotiation, because it's not just the salary increase that Ms. Williams is looking for. It's also additional severance pay. It's additional things that would normally be included in a contract. So knowing that that her contract is coming up for review, it makes more sense that we would negotiate it at that time, look at the deliverables, look at the expectations, look at everything that is included in that, and make a determination. Something else, I asked for a number of pieces of information that I did look at as well, and I will say that in particular, there were a couple of things that I noted. One was that and Raquel knows I like her. This is not a personal issue. This is something that I would do with any employee. When Raquel came to us here, before I was on the commission. She had no experience as an executive director. So she has essentially worked as an executive director for the last year and a half only here. The increase that she's looking for is realistically for somebody that's had a lot of experience and has done a lot of things. And I'm not saying she hasn't done a good job. What I'm saying is that she's still learning and she's still new. And although she has done some good things, there have also been some mistakes made along the way. And I'm not going to sit here and point out those flaws at this point. We can discuss them at another time. But there have been some things that were some poor judgment on a couple of things. And then there were some things that were just simple, what I would consider to be rookie mistakes. I will give you one that I think you can change right now. The CRA Facebook page, you have a picture of the pier. Pier isn't in the CRA district. I mean, if it's a CRA, shouldn't there be a picture of something in the CRA? It makes more sense. Just things like that. And that's just things that learning over time, and in any job, we all get better the longer that we're in it, generally. And if you have that opportunity, you don't just jump to a higher salary very quickly, regardless of what's going on in that particular job. You gradually get there. And since this is a negotiated contract, I feel that it makes more sense that let's see where we are at that point. You'll be closer to 2 years at that point, right? So maybe there will be more things that happen in the meantime we can discuss and figure out ways to help to move things forward even more, and then talk about it at that point. The other thing that I also noticed was that the comp and class that was done by Evergreen, and there was a change in your classification, and you were brought up. And based upon that, your current salary is still above the midpoint. And there are a number of people that work for the city who are in essentially the same position that you are, where they came into a position without having the experience in that particular position, that are also at that same classification. And, my concern would be that if we're choosing one person to increase to a higher level and a higher salary, then what are you doing with the other employees who are also in the same position? And that just generally doesn't seem fair. So I would agree with Commissioner Harris or Board Member Harris that we probably should wait on this. We should discuss it in more depth as we get closer to contract negotiations and address it at that time. Board Member James?
I'm next.
No. Oh, I'm sorry, you are. Board Member Brandemeier.
I sat here and listened to all this, but to me it's garbage, and I'll tell you why. She's a basketball player, no experience, doing a fantastic job. He has a events department, doing a fantastic job, my friend Bill. She's a nurse. She has no experience, but she's doing a fantastic job. I'm a nurse, no experience. I'm doing a fantastic job. And you, Mayor, you're an attorney, and you're doing a great job. And Raquel is doing a fantastic job. And I go to the audience. Candido, I love him. He's our assistant city manager. He was in code enforcement. I wish he had both things to handle. He is great. Our city manager over there, she's doing a fantastic job. So that's a bunch of garbage when you say, oh, no experience. There ain't a damn person on this board had experience. And please take the vote, because I am livid over those comments.
Different situation. I just want to add, it's a little different situation. We're up here, we're elected officials. It's a different situation than somebody that's an employee of the city or through the city. And it's a, it's a 20% increase.
Sure.
And you have an individual who is, like I said, still learning. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's normal. That's in any job, public and private sector, where somebody comes in and they are new to a position, and it takes time. Nobody is this is $140,000 a year. There are, if you look at the other ones that are in there, the other ones, first of all, were all TIFs. First of all, they were not TIFless. But there are cities of all different sizes, and there are people that have experience there 20 years experience, and some of them are only making $100,000 a year. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it, and I think if you're going to make if you really want to make a decision like that and you want to increase their salary, then we really need to talk about some of the negatives that have happened. I did not want to do that at this point in time, but I will do that if I have to. A big one, I think, is poor judgment in what happened with the city center project and having the meeting and closing it to the public. That was something that should not have occurred. And whether it's legal or not, it was a judgment call on the part of our executive director to close the meeting. She chose to close the meeting, and we have been all, I'm certain, hearing a lot from people about that, and it doesn't look good. Whether it's legal or not, like I said, it doesn't make a difference. There is a lack of transparency. And knowing that we have had problems in the past with this and still making that judgment call, that is something that somebody with more experience probably would not have done. So I'm concerned about those issues. As far as, I'm not saying that she doesn't deserve a raise. I'm not saying that it's a situation where we need to say, nope, she doesn't get anything. What I'm saying is that we need to reconsider it and discuss it when it comes time for her contract. Discuss what the appropriate raise would be, look at what the deliverables are. The type of raise that she's looking for is for somebody that's done something extraordinary, like bring in 10 new businesses that are bringing a ton of tax revenue to the city. That's not what has occurred here. I mean, there are businesses that have come here, but it has nothing to do with the CRA. They have to do with other organizations that are bringing businesses in, including Kimco and their development, as well as the Greater Fort Lauderdale Business Alliance. So there's it's nothing personal. It's just being realistic about when people are moving up a chain. And as you become more experienced, you do earn more money and you do get more accolades. But since we're still at the early stages and we still have a contract that is in place, and also extending her contract, which would also be an issue because you're extending it beyond the time that I believe our CRA expires, and we have to address that. So it would make more sense if we're going to address those things, address them at the same time down the road when it's due. That's all I'm saying. Did you want to say something?
I'll defer to a board member. I do have some follow-up, but
Let the commissioner speak first.
yes.
Board Member James.
Yes, I have comments before my motion, I guess after the executive director. I just want to make it known for the public that it was closed because it was a legal matter. It was illegal. It wasn't a poor judgment call. It doesn't matter if someone was sitting in that seat for 25 years. If our city attorney says that something is illegal, it's illegal. And that is just that. It's not something trying to hide it from any public person. It all came out. It was illegal. That's number one. Number two, when we talk about raises and what does that mean for other people, I just sat here with this same board that approved other directors of other departments to give substantial raises to other individuals that will become an assistant director that was never an assistant director before. I know our finance director, before she was our finance director, she was an assistant finance director, and that came with a significant over $20,000 to $30,000 raise in 1 year. I know these because when I first got here, I asked for all of the salaries for over all of the years, and she deserved it. And I told her that she deserved it. I didn't have an issue with it. So there are those calls all the time, and people move to positions that they have never had before, and it isn't all about merit and the experience. It's about the quality of work that you are showing. And so I just wanted to say those couple of things, and I have a motion waiting after the CRA executive director finishes.
And we also have another board member who'd like to speak.
That's fine.
Actually, two.
That's fine.
Did you want to speak first?
I just wanted to briefly clarify, our CRA expires in 2034, so if this contract were to be extended for 3 years, that would be well before the 2034 expiration date. Also, at the start of the fiscal year, October 1st, if the proposed merit increase of 2.5% is determined to be what all employees will receive, then the salary that I am at right now would increase, and the salary that is being requested would be a 17.2% increase, and not 20%. I do want to clarify the city center redevelopment project. As the project manager for that project, I definitely took the RFP process very seriously and deliberated a lot on how to go about this process to be transparent and also to avoid any accusations of unfairness or deviation from the policy and from the law. Now, I did consult with the city attorney to ask about the Sunshine Law, and what I wanted to ensure happened was that during oral presentations for each proposer, that we ensured that the other teams were not able to have access and listen to the proposal from another team. And that is why only those portions of that particular evaluation committee meeting was closed to the public, not the entire meeting, not the discussions of the evaluation committee. We made sure to house the evaluation committee meetings in the commission chamber, to record the meetings both visually and with audio. That's something that's not typically done. Evaluation committee meetings very rarely take place in the city commission chambers with recordings, video and otherwise. And so we have tried to make sure that this process went extremely well, because the last thing that I wanted to have happen was any sort of bid protest that would stall the project or would create any sort of bad publicity about this project, or have any of the developers feel that something happened that was unfair. So it is a judgment call that I did make, and all of the videos and backup for all of the presentations are publicly available, and folks have asked for it, and once it was made available to the public after the legal waiting period, members of the public were able to see all of the information. There have been public records requests for the backup, and those documents have been provided to anyone who has asked. Thank you.
Board Member Brandon Marty.
Tom, through the mayor to Tom, what advice did you give regarding that meeting, city attorney?
The Sunshine Law was amended to allow deliberations of evaluation committees to close, like have a shade session that you're used to, so the public is not invited at that time, because it also, as Ms. Williams is pointing out, it prohibits other people from hearing the questions and answers. But it's allowed under the law to do that. And then it had to be recorded, at least by audio tape, which it was. I think she went beyond that and did it by videotape as well. So there are 3 different portions that are allowed to be closed when evaluation committees are considering responses of respondents. And she did that particular one. She was authorized to do it. It's a choice people can make.
Thank you.
It wasn't a requirement, though, correct?
It's not required.
No, so it was a choice. Okay. Board Member Harris.
Like I said before, I just want a chance to do the performance evaluation and the deliverables, and just not say no to this, just not right now. We have to finish the budget process, do the evaluation. I mean, you know what? If your job description, and maybe we want to increase that and give you more money. So I think that's even the test of your ability, is to just wait on this until we can give you an evaluation. And we're talking, what, 30 to 45 days? I mean, I don't think it's going to change anything that much if we don't do it right now. So, I mean, everybody gets an evaluation. We all do.
Board Member James, did you have something to add, or you want to make a motion?
And I just want to make a motion.
Okay, then Vice Mayor, or Vice Board.
I was just going to say, did you meet with her the last 2 weeks? Because I thought that's what we were all doing.
I have not.
Okay, well then I would question respectfully your judgment, because, I mean, I already gave her 3rd degree. I gave her her performance evaluation. All these questions you all are asking, I've already held her accountable and said, explain this to me, explain that to me. Why did you do this way? tell me this was your decision. Tell me your thought process through that decision. You did this. What do you think of the outcome of that? Do you think you could have done better? Da, 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 da. Every single thing. So that's how I spent my 2 weeks. And I was under the impression that that's how we were all spending our 2 weeks. Because I did agree with you and the chair when you guys didn't have the information, that wasn't fair, that everyone needed the same information provided, and we all needed to be looking at the same thing. But at the same time, everyone needed to do their due diligence and sit down. If you didn't know what projects she brought, you needed to find out. If you didn't know her deliverables, then you needed to find out. I know her deliverables. I know how much money her efforts have brought in. I know all those things because I asked the hard questions and I made her provide the answers. So I suppose that's why I feel so confident, and some of us up here seem to feel confident in their thing. But I assumed that everyone had done their homework, but I guess that's not the case.
Board Member Brandemari.
I did my homework on the phone with her 5 times.
Well, let's just ask the question then. How many new businesses have you brought in, Raquel, since you've been here for a year and a half?
You got a motion.
To the CRA
I do have a
district?
motion.
So provided to you over a week ago now have been our report on our efforts for business attraction and retention. And for anyone that knows economic development, you know that for the efforts that you put out, they aren't always necessarily able to come back to you in a quantifiable fashion. However, what I do know is that the work that the CRA does in marketing the city and making the city attractive to businesses and highlighting the positive aspects of the city has done a lot for the growth of our business community here in the city of Dania Beach. So I would hesitate to say, okay, if there was not a named business that comes into the city, and people bring businesses, do those businesses last all the time? Not necessarily. So when you look at the overall economic development activity of the CRA, it has been tremendous. And that is evidenced by not only the report that we have provided to you, but the list of projects and initiatives that we have brought forward. If you look at our residential beautification program, that is bringing additional value to the city because we're increasing the taxable values of those properties that we are beautifying, as well as for those who are seeing fit to do the same for their properties, even though they don't receive the grant. Our commercial property improvement program, where we do facade improvements for businesses, that increases the taxable value for those properties, and that generates revenue for the city of Dania Beach. So everything that we do, even all of the promotions that we do for new businesses at Dania Point and beyond, really has a direct and an indirect economic impact on this city. And a lot of the programs that we've been working on bringing to the city, including the City Center project and including the project you referenced earlier, in collaboration with the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, the CRA is playing a role, and the best role that we can given the resources that we do have. So I would venture to say that our economic development activity in the city has been very beneficial over the years, not just during my tenure, but since I've been here as well. The projects list that has been provided to you over a week now, and has also been included in the administrative report, shows a 162% increase in the number of projects, initiatives, and programs that have been undertaken or are in the process of implementation by the CRA. So I do stand by the work of the CRA team and what we've been able to do since my arrival, and I do pay respect to those CRA directors that came before me and the groundwork that they did in order to get some of these projects off the ground or to initiate some of these projects. So that's my answer there.
So I didn't hear a number. which is what I was asking for. My recollection from reviewing the documentation was that there are no new businesses that have come into the city through the CRA since your tenure. There have been projects that have been completed, but they were projects that were already in the works or that were started by other outside agencies or brought in by other outside agencies. I do think there have been some good things that have been done. I'm not disputing that. What I am saying is that this is a contracted position with a negotiated salary, negotiated benefits that needs to be discussed at a time where we can actually negotiate the contract. Just like we would with our city manager, with our city attorney, with any other position that reports to us, any executive level position. That's the way that it works. There is no reason to rush this process since the contract was negotiated for the 2 years that it was there for, and we're not at that point yet. I would also venture to say that there are other issues that need to be addressed still, that, again, I'm sure we're gonna have a bunch of people here for the city center issue today, and a primary reason why I think it's happening is because the meetings were closed and because it was posted on the CRA website as though it was a done deal. So people are under that impression. Both of those are bad judgment calls. Both of those were things that shouldn't have been done, and it's created more problems for the commission, for the city as a whole. So those are issues that need to be taken into account, and somebody who's been doing this job longer than that, who has spent more time involved in the process, who has been in an executive level position for a longer period of time, would have that experience and would know that. I'm not saying it's your fault. What I'm saying is that it's part of the learning process. And as part of the learning process, you don't get paid $140,000 when you walk in the door. It's a significant increase. It is almost 20%. I was not including the 2.5% because that's an assumption. So technically it's a 20% based on your own backup documentation that you brought us. I would ask that the board reconsider and hold off on this until we can negotiate the contract at the time that it's supposed to be. Board Member Harris.
No, it's my call.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I think if you're making a motion, you keep telling me.
But I'm never getting a chance to even speak. It's like.
Okay, well, I asked you before and you said that you wanted to make a motion. That's all you wanted.
Let's
Is that what you would like?
Let's relax.
Please don't condescend to me. Do you want to make a motion or do you want to speak on the issue?
I want to speak and make a
Then go
motion.
ahead, board member, you can go ahead and speak on it, but we do have other board members that would like to speak.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion and then we can have discussion afterwards. So I'm making a motion to approve 7.2.
Board Member Harris.
You have to have a second first. I know, she said you though, so say second. Say second.
I'm just going to make another request that we just wait another 2 weeks before we do this, so I have a chance to do my due diligence. I haven't done it. Like, I was gone last week, as you know. That's it, 2 weeks. If you can't wait 2 weeks, then I feel sorry for you.
We're in the middle of budget discussions too, so it
Yes, in
really
the
would
middle
make
of
more
budget
sense.
discussions, I'm just asking for 2 weeks, that's it, 2 weeks.
So I have a motion on the table.
I second it.
Any other discussion? I have two people here. Board Member Brandon Marty, was that all you were going to say?
No, yeah, that's it.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Board Member Brandemart,
Yes.
Board Member Harris,
No.
Board Member James,
Yes.
Vice Chair Odman,
Yes.
Chair Llewellyn.
No.
Motion carries 3-2.
Any board member comments? Instead of going through everybody, does anybody have any so we can move this along?
Just one quick one,
Board Member
Mayor.
Brandon Marty, go ahead.
Condolences to the Ralph Eddy family. I only just found out, and he's been gone a couple of weeks, I guess, but Ralph Eddy passed away. He was a great supporter of this city. He just loved it. And there was no funeral, no kind of to-do at all. In fact, the body was just donated to further the advance of someone else's illnesses. I think it's wonderful of him.
Any other board member comments? No? I have a suggestion, but I'm going to hold it since we're short on time. Any information items? No? And we're adjourned. We'll be back at 7 o'clock for the commission meeting.